Well, welcome to Dirty Secrets, the channel where the truth can't stay hidden. Betrayal can break you. It can rip apart the very foundation you thought your life was built on. It can make you question your worth, your judgment, even your sanity. But for some people, betrayal doesn't just destroy, it transforms. Sometimes, betrayal becomes the spark for something darker: revenge. Tonight's story is about Ryan, a man who thought he had a loving wife, a stable marriage, and a future he could depend on. But hidden beneath Melissa's smile was arrogance. The kind of arrogance that comes from believing you can lie, cheat, and never get caught. She thought she was untouchable. She thought Ryan would never find out. What she didn't expect was what he'd do after learning the truth. Because Ryan wasn't just a man betrayed. He was a man pushed to the edge, and then sharpened by his own pain. And what followed wasn't just heartbreak. It was the kind of revenge you don't forget. Ryan and Melissa had been married for 5 years. On the surface, their life looked almost picture perfect. They had a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood. Weekends were often filled with family barbecues, double dates with friends, or lazy mornings drinking coffee on the back porch. Social media was full of smiling selfies, vacations to the beach, anniversary dinners. To anyone scrolling past, they looked like the ideal couple. But behind the filters and the posed photos, Ryan had started to notice cracks forming. Melissa was always distracted. Her phone seemed glued to her hand. She'd laugh at messages she wouldn't share, then brush it off when Ryan asked. She claimed she was hitting the gym late at night, but often came home with excuses that didn't quite add up. Lost track of time, traffic was bad, ran into a friend. Ryan wanted to believe her. He wanted to be the trusting husband, the man who gave his wife the benefit of the doubt. And whenever his gut twisted with suspicion, Melissa had the same dismissive response. "You're paranoid. You should trust me." She would laugh lightly, roll her eyes, kiss him on the cheek, and just like that, she'd turn his doubts into guilt. And Ryan. He swallowed it. He told himself he was overthinking, that Melissa was just stressed, or busy, or tired, that if there was anyone he should trust in this world, it was his wife. But in the quiet moments, when the house was still and his mind wandered, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Because instincts don't lie. And his instincts were screaming. Sometimes the truth doesn't come crashing through the door. Sometimes. It slips quietly into the room when you least expect it. For Ryan, it happened on an ordinary evening. Melissa had just come home from one of her so-called gym nights. She tossed her gym bag onto the couch, kissed Ryan on the cheek, and went upstairs for a shower. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, the screen still glowing faintly. Ryan hadn't planned to look. He hadn't been snooping. He wasn't the type of man who went digging through his wife's things. But as he passed by, the corner of the screen lit up with a notification. A message from a man's name he didn't recognize. And the words froze him in place. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." At first, Ryan told himself it had to be a mistake, a joke, a spam message, anything but what it looked like. But his hand moved on its own. His fingers hovered above the trackpad, trembling. He hesitated, his breath caught in his throat. Because he knew. Deep down, he already knew. And when he clicked, the world as he knew it shattered. Thread after thread of conversations filled the screen. Weeks of messages, explicit words, flirty exchanges, photos. Melissa in outfits he had never seen her wear at home, hotel bookings, plans for secret meetings disguised as workouts and girls' nights. Ryan's heart pounded so hard it echoed in his ears. His hands shook so violently he had to grip the table just to steady himself. Each message was another dagger, each photo another twist of the knife. This wasn't just a fling, it was a second life. A life she lived while he was home cooking dinner, paying bills, tucking their future into place piece by piece. He couldn't breathe. His chest felt tight, his throat dry. The words blurred as tears welled in his eyes. He wanted to slam the laptop shut. Pretend he hadn't seen. Pretend ignorance could stitch the pieces of his world back together. But the damage was done. The truth had slipped in, and it was merciless. Melissa wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just lying. She was building memories with someone else. Memories that were supposed to be his. And the worst part? She had no idea he knew. Upstairs, the shower kept running, the sound of water masking the silence downstairs. Ryan sat frozen at the table, staring at the glowing screen, his whole body trembling with rage and heartbreak. At that moment, one thought cut through the fog of pain. What am I going to do? Ryan sat at the table, long after Melissa had gone to bed, staring at the laptop screen as if it were a wound that wouldn't close. His body was numb, but inside, his emotions fought like fire and ice. Shock gave way to disbelief. Disbelief gave way to grief. And grief quickly sharpened into rage. A deep, burning rage that clawed at his insides, demanding release. He could have stormed upstairs, thrown open the bathroom door, screamed until his throat was raw. He could have demanded answers right then and there. But what would that do? She would deny. She would twist. She would call him paranoid, just like she always had. No, that wasn't enough. This wasn't just about catching her. This was about making sure she couldn't wiggle out of the truth. About making sure she paid for every lie, every smirk, every time she made him question his own sanity. So Ryan made a decision. He wouldn't confront her yet. He would wait. He would plan. Over the next few weeks, Ryan became an actor in his own marriage. He smiled when Melissa laughed at her phone. He kissed her goodnight while her body still carried the faint scent of someone else's cologne. He played the part of the doting husband. Dinners, conversations, even date nights, all while rage coiled like a snake beneath his calm exterior. Melissa believed she had fooled him completely. She carried on with her secret life, oblivious to the storm building right beside her. But Ryan was watching, and he was documenting everything. He copied messages, saved photos, took screenshots of hotel reservations. He even kept track of her so-called gym nights, noting the times she left and returned, comparing them to the timestamps in her messages. Each piece of evidence was like a weapon he was sharpening, a blade he would one day use to cut through her lies. It was agonizing, sleeping beside her, pretending nothing had changed. But he forced himself to endure it, because the longer she believed she was safe, the more damning her arrogance became. At dinners with friends, Ryan laughed at Melissa's jokes, even as he replayed those explicit texts in his head. At family gatherings, he held her hand, even as he remembered the photos she had sent to another man. And late at night, while she drifted off to sleep beside him, Ryan lay awake in the dark, eyes wide open, planning. Because this wasn't just about surviving betrayal anymore, it was about reclaiming power. Melissa had taken his trust. She had taken their marriage. She had taken the version of himself that believed love was safe. But Ryan refused to let her walk away untouched. And as the weeks stretched on, his plan crystallized. He would choose the moment. He would control the stage. And when he finally confronted her, she wouldn't be able to deny a single thing. Their anniversary fell on a Thursday, the kind of midweek celebration where restaurants are quieter and waiters speak in soft voices. Ryan chose their usual spot linen tablecloths, a little candle between them, the same booth where they'd once made plans for a future that now felt like fiction. Melissa arrived in a dress he'd never seen. New perfume, too, something sharp and floral that didn't belong to their history. She leaned in for a kiss like nothing in their lives was broken. "You look amazing," Ryan said evenly. His tone was calm, almost gentle, the voice of a man who had decided exactly what he was going to do. They ordered. She talked about a podcast, about a coworker, about a crazy week. He nodded, present but measuring every beat. When the server set down their entrees, Ryan reached into his jacket and placed a thick, unmarked envelope beside her wine glass. "What's this?" Melissa smiled, teasing. "A card. Don't tell me you wrote me a poem." "In a way," Ryan said. She slid a finger under the flap, and pulled out a stack of papers. The smile died before the first page hit the light. Printed screenshots, date stamps, hotel confirmations, texts she had typed with careless heat. Her face went bloodless. She flipped through one page, then another, trying to find a version where the evidence would rearrange itself into mercy. It didn't. Ryan leaned forward. His voice was so quiet she had to tip toward it. "Happy anniversary," he said. "I know everything." She looked up, eyes wide, mouth opening on instinct. Deny. Minimize. Distract. The brain cycles through scripts it thinks might save the body. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered. Ryan held her gaze. "It's exactly what it looks like." She tried again. "It was a mistake." "For how long?" he asked. Silence. "How long, Melissa?" Her throat worked. "A few weeks." He turned a page, read a date out loud from the top corner. Then another. Months. Her shoulders sagged, the lie too heavy to carry to the next sentence. "Okay," she said, barely audible. "Months." Their server drifted near, sensed the weather, and drifted away. Conversations in the room became distant waves. The only tide that mattered was the one flooding and receding in Melissa's eyes. "He chased me," she said suddenly, grasping at a new script. "He wouldn't stop. I tried to shut it down." Ryan tapped a photo. "This was your hotel booking." She pivoted. "We were fighting. You were checked out. I felt invisible. I was lonely. It just happened." "Affairs don't happen," Ryan said, not unkindly. "Spilled coffee happens. This is a system. Reservations, alibis, a calendar of lies." Anger flashed. "So you went through my things, my laptop, my private life?" He let the absurdity sit there a moment, catching the light like cheap jewelry. "You created a private life inside our marriage," he said. "I looked at the space you built in my home and found the lights on." Melissa blinked hard, tears finally breaking. Shame, fear, calculation. All of it moved across her face like weather. "What do you want me to say?" "Truth once," Ryan said. "Do you love him?" "No. Fast, too fast." He nodded. "Then why risk everything?" Her voice cracked. "Because I wanted to feel chosen, admired, like I mattered." The line hung between them, ugly and true. Ryan let it settle. "Then you should have left," he said, "not burn the house down while still sleeping in it." She reached across the table, fingers hovering above his hand. "Can we fix it? We can go to counseling. I'll block his number. I'll quit my job if I have to." Ryan slid his hand away and opened a second envelope. He placed it on top of the first. Inside were two neatly typed pages. "The first is a list of everything I've already saved. Messages, bookings, photos. Duplicates live in 3 places," he said matter-of-factly. "The second is a separation agreement for us to review with attorneys. I'm done discussing whether the affair happened. We will only discuss logistics." Her tears came harder, shoulders shaking. "Please, Ryan, don't do this here." "You did this here," he said softly, gesturing to the stack of paper, to the life between them. "I'm just ending it where I can keep my voice low." She folded in on herself, small in a dress meant for triumph. The room hummed on. Forks touched china. Somewhere someone laughed free, oblivious, lucky. When the check arrived, Ryan paid. He stood. "You can keep the envelopes," he said. "You'll need them." As he walked past her, she said his name, half plea, half confession. He paused, eyes on the door. "You didn't break me," he said without turning. "You only changed who I refused to be." Then he left. Morning comes whether you sleep or not. Ryan hadn't. He brewed coffee he couldn't taste and opened his laptop. Revenge isn't a scream, it's a sequence. He kept it clean, factual, and surgical. Step 1. The circle. He drafted a brief, unemotional note to Melissa's parents and her closest friends. "I am sharing this so I don't have to explain it a dozen times. Melissa has been in a months-long affair. Attached are time-stamped screenshots and hotel receipts. I'm ending the marriage. I'm not asking anyone to take sides. I'm asking you not to rewrite what happened." He attached a folder. No commentary, no color, just evidence. Replies arrived like aftershocks. Her mother's message was first shattered and tender, a plea for this to be a nightmare. Her father called, voice a tight wire. "Is this real?" Ryan confirmed it. He didn't elaborate. He refused to turn pain into gossip. Step 2, the other home. The man in the messages was married. Ryan found his wife's email on a public family blog. He wrote to her with the same economy of words. "I'm sending this because you deserve to know. I wish someone had done the same for me." He included the folder. He included nothing else. Her reply came hours later, a single line. "Thank you for telling me the truth." No flourish, just a woman adjusting the weight of a new world. Step 3, legal. He met with an attorney that afternoon. The evidence mattered not for spectacle, but for leverage. The lawyer skimmed, nodded, started drawing map lines. Division of property, timelines, non-disparagement. The kind of paperwork that turns catastrophes into calendars. Step 4, reputation. Ryan didn't send anything to Melissa's boss, coworkers, or HR. He didn't need to. Consequences aren't always better when they're louder. But rumors travel where smoke exists. By the end of the week, Melissa's carefully curated, perfect wife, accomplished professional image had a fracture you could see from space. Step 5, the man himself. The other man called at last, number blocked. Ryan let him speak for 13 seconds. Apologies, excuses, a vague threat about legal ramifications. Ryan ended the call with one sentence. "I told the only person who needed to know your wife. Consider your time better spent." Melissa tried every phase on the wheel. Denial, anger, bargaining. Texts poured in. "I can't believe you did this to me. Please take it back. Please don't ruin my life. We can fix it. Just don't tell everyone. You're cruel. You're overreacting. Everyone makes mistakes." He replied to only one message. "This isn't punishment. It's sunlight." The divorce moved quickly. The prenup they'd signed back when they were young and optimistic and afterthought then now stood like a locked gate. Between that and the paper trail, Melissa's negotiating room shrank to a hallway. By month's end, she had moved into a smaller place. The other man's household split too, boxes stacked where photos had hung. Ryan didn't gloat. He didn't post. He didn't monologue. Revenge wasn't a victory lap. It was a boundary with teeth. And when people cornered him at gatherings and asked for the real story, he repeated the same sentence. "She cheated. I left. Nothing more. Let the quiet do the teaching." Revenge gave Ryan something he hadn't had since the night he saw that first notification. Control. But control isn't the same as peace. The first month alone felt like living in a museum of a life. Every object had a plaque. First apartment couch, honeymoon mug, the plant she swore she'd keep alive. He boxed what he could, donated what he didn't need, and left a single empty shelf to remind himself that space can be a kindness. He started therapy. Not because he was falling apart, because he refused to calcify around his anger. "I did what I needed to do," he told the therapist. "But I don't want the guy who got even to be the only story I tell myself." So they worked. On grief that hides under rage. On the difference between vigilance and paranoia. On how to trust his own perception again, without turning it into a weapon against the next person he might love. He made rules for himself. No doom-scrolling her accounts. Curiosity is a trap with perfect bait. No late-night texts. Closure doesn't live in someone else's inbox. No revenge sequels. The point had been made. Anything further would start costing him more than it cost her. He ran. First, a mile. Then, 3. He learned the routes where sunrise soaked the sidewalks, where the city woke in soft stages. He cooked for one and learned to make it feel like abundance instead of absence. He called old friends he'd let drift and answered when they asked, "How are you really?" And when the nights got long, when the mind wanted to replay the old movie frame by frame, he did the most radical thing. He let the scene play without adding new dialogue. Pain passed faster when he stopped narrating it. In time, the house stopped feeling haunted. He bought a new set of sheets. He rearranged the furniture. He laughed first by accident, then on purpose. He noticed the way quiet can be tender when it isn't hiding something. One afternoon, months later, an envelope arrived. The final decree, clean lines, signatures. Official language that can't capture what it means to step out of a story and close the cover. Ryan held the paper, exhaled, and placed it in a folder labeled simply, Done. Betrayal can break you, but breaking isn't the same as ending. Melissa's arrogance wasn't just thinking Ryan would never find out, it was believing that if he did, he'd accept the role she'd written for him. The confused husband, the forgiving husband, the silent husband. Instead, he became something else, the author of his own ending. Revenge for Ryan wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. It was telling the truth where lies had lived too long. It was reclaiming the power to decide what happens next. But here's the part worth remembering. Revenge isn't the destination. It's a door. You still have to decide what kind of person walks through it. Ryan chose therapy over bitterness, boundaries over gossip, a quieter life over a louder war. He learned that dignity is the one thing no one can steal. You can only set it down. He picked his backup. If you're listening and you've been betrayed, hear this. Their choices are not a mirror of your worth. Your instincts weren't the problem. Ignoring them was. You are allowed to protect yourself with facts and boundaries, and you're allowed to heal afterward without apologizing for either. Betrayal might fracture the life you had, but it can also free the life you deserve. Melissa thought she'd written the last chapter. Ryan turned the page, and that, quiet, steady, unshakable, is what freedom sounds like.